these are soft lead rivets. Now, on this bike specifically, we're not going to use these. These are generally used in restorations because they take about an average 5-6 times longer than to put it into the standard rivet. And PXs were assembled with standard rivets anyway, so for this bike, this is overkill. On the front over there, they're a bit of like a C channel. As a result, they don't really like to bend. That's why they're so good, because once they're in place and the rivets are down, they don't budge. The whole idea with this is so that you don't scratch the paint when you put your feet down on here, but they're a nightmare to line up properly, and it's a bit of a telltale sign of whether the person that built the bike knew what they were doing or not, because if you send this away for paint and they close up these holes and you don't have an index on where to put them, unless you know where to put them, it looks horrible. So it's a really important job to get right. It takes a lot of labor and a long time to get right, but it's well worth it at the end of the day when the floor strips are nice and straight and the bike looks good. And we've got most of the holes lined up over here, but you can see how the strip is not doing that. And at the front over here, this piece needs to be lining up with that hole over there. But then that means, if we do that, it's now not lining up with the bend on the floorboard in the front here. So we've got to manipulate this in such a way that we get that angle to sit right there, and we get it to sit nice and straight while it's still loose, so that when it's riveted down, it doesn't have any built-in tension inside of it and want to move. The first job is basically to locate it with just something in the hole at the back, because we know it's in the right place, and slowly start moving our way forward with the rivets. Yeah, so there's lots of different rivet guns out there. You'll see at this shop, I specifically like using old tools. I find that old tools just work better. They were designed with a little bit more love. This is an old rivet gun. I think it actually says somewhere where it's out of. Yeah. So this is out of London, England. And it is incredibly easy to use and a lot easier to squeeze, and just overall makes for a nicer job. And I like to use rivet washers on my builds. So these washers are specifically sized to rivets. Rivets don't come in standard sizes. Bolts and nuts and that sort of stuff come in round millimeter numbers. They come in M3s, M4s, M5s, M6s. That means it's 3, 4, 5, 6 millimeter in diameter. Rivets come in strange sizes. This is a 3.5. Then the next size up would be a 4.2. From a 4.2 up, you go to a 5mm. So these are rivet washers. They're sized specifically to fit exactly on a rivet. And it means that when you put this rivet through and you now squeeze it from the bottom, it squeezes up against this washer and it spreads the load nice and evenly so the rivet can't pull through. It just makes for a more secure connection. Yeah. Just finished the whole floor strip off. So these are quite well designed. They have a hole in them which indexes on the rivet, and then they also have a profile inside here which nicely slides into the floor strip. So the idea is that once it's slid all the way in, you can see it's quite a tight fit. Once it slides all the way in and the rivet comes through, the cap can't come off. You got two different models on PXs. You got one where it had holes all the way through, and the ones that have holes all the way through, you can see the top of the rivet head. I much prefer these ones because the floor strip, just all the rivets disappear.